we felt that it was, if we passed an ordinance that was held unconstitutional, that the courts would rule that it would not stand up in court, then we were wasting not only the citizens' time but our time as well. So a lot of thought went into this ordinance before it was introduced, and we realize that it's not the final answer to this type of business, but certainly it gives us some controls where we had no control before.
The Supreme Court decision today won't affect nude dancing in Oklahoma City, nor will it affect Jim Scott's ordinance. However, in 5 years, when businesses start having to move, he expects the ordinance to be challenged in court. Ted Brown, Action 4.
We'll notify you then.
All right. 196. These to you again. Well, today it affects a couple, and that is George Chief. Just take available dollars today if it's going to impact aid out here to help us in our school system. You know, the buck must stop somewhere. Someone must take responsibility. When we take when we take federal money, we should be aware of the consequences later down the road. And these young men who are have been elected to our city council are responsible people that we assumed when we put them in office. And we just must have people who have look down into 5 years, 10 years from now, and not just take available dollars today if it's going to affect our city tomorrow.
What the city council has said, as far as I'm concerned, is that they want liquor by the drink, and they're not going to penalize a private club for having open saloon violations. And the city council is elected by the people. The city council supposedly does what the people want. Now, if that's what the people want, that's great.
You know, that ordinance was passed in 1976 by Balkan. What's the difference of bringing it in and buying it there? You know, I think it's carrying an open. Every operation is different, but I think that violation is far less serious than the ones that they don't have on the list under the old ordinance. Things like narcotics, like prostitution, violence, and especially selling to minors. I've never heard of anybody getting their license jerked for selling to minors.
Britt says of the new liquor ordinance, he's glad that city leaders and club owners have finally worked together on something. But Ornstein says, so what? What they've worked on wasn't worthwhile in the first place, especially when it comes to fighting liquor by the drink. Ed Stewart, Action 4.
What about maybe on there?
water damage at home? Did you have you in it?
Well, I find it, I enjoy wearing one. They're fast to take care of. You don't have to have any long time blow drying or whatever is necessary with long hair. I wore one since 1954.
Keep your family well. My wife's good.
In Richard Pryor's new movie, Bustin' Loose, Pryor plays a tough, streetwise con man. Cecily Tyson plays a straight-laced, well-educated teacher and social worker. Pryor gets in trouble with the law and his parole officer, who also happens to be Tyson's boyfriend. Her problem is finding a bus driver to help her get 7 unwanted and emotionally disturbed kids to her parents' farm in the mountains of Washington State. Eventually, these two opposites wind up transporting a broken-down busload of kids from Philadelphia to Washington State and end up meeting each other somewhere in the middle.
Joe!
What?
Stop the bus. The butt has to go to the bathroom.
You don't need to go to no bathroom.
Don't you like her?
I don't like to go there or her mama.
She likes you.
She doesn't.
Stop the bus.
I don't want to stop the
I
bus.
want you to stop the bus.
Shut up.
Gee, what a hell! Stop the bus. Stop the bus.
Damn, there's 2 bathrooms. You gonna stand in line? Why don't you use the other bathroom? Is something wrong with you?
Now you may be thinking, what's a classy, dramatic actress like Cecily Tyson doing alongside an earthy comedian like Richard Pryor? The answer is, quite well, thank you. Separately they're good, but together they're dynamite. And with a terrific bunch of bratty kids along, the chemistry is perfect. Bustin' Loose is in the Silver Streak category of movies that make you laugh, cry, and think at the same time. Spencer Briggs, Action 4.
We can't count on the council going for an injunction. I would like to be able to say that the council doesn't want this stuff dumped, will not allow it to, but we don't know that's going to happen. So we have to be ready to file an injunction on Tuesday as a delaying tactic to somehow postpone it. Once it's dumped in the lake, it's too late.
Yeah.
Dollars and
Well, that's okay.
that
I'll-
we
I'll-
can, then if we can pay for them because they're but the dioxins that are released when this I want to stop this before they use it in the drinking water of America. We're the test case for it. We and these other 3 sites that have been picked are either going to have to stop it or they're going to get the permit to do it and then they'll put it in everyone's drinking water. AquaClean, you know, the AquaClean is not really a clean kill as far as
Except it doesn't grow there.
It doesn't
Oh, we
grow
have
there.
a thing we're just describing. Big mass of material, it decomposes, you get all the stuff released, you get nutrients,
Some council members aren't concerned about this. Council member Gail Lee says he grew up on a farm and he's been around chemicals all his life. He says he's not worried about the dumping. Monday night, a public hearing will be held. Both sides of the issue will be heard. If the opposition decides not to take any legal action, then the dumping will go on as scheduled Wednesday. Ben McCain, Action 4 in Chickasha.
I think that was a very disrespectful response of Mr. Long. If I were him, I'd be ashamed of myself. He should be proposing that we have fair and legal elections just like I am. I think the issue is not who is to represent District 2 now. I think that can be decided by another election.
Yes.
I think the real issue is who is going to cause a reformation in school election law in this state. This rotten business has been going on for years. I agree with Judge Nafee, who says the problem is with the legislation. I agree with that. But the legislature is not going to make any significant changes in school elections because they respond to pressure groups. And who is the biggest pressure group in the state of Oklahoma? The teachers' union.
Mostly.
My foot's in the way.
No, it's not bad. Well, we're looking good here. I think it's ready to go.
Clear, bro.
all the rest of this goes over to another building way off to the opposite side over there. All
Well, they told me that I can't float any more canoes on the Illinois River until I pay a fee in, and I think the fee is unconstitutional and not right.
What's the bottom line on this whole situation?
The bottom line is that the Oklahoma Scenic Rivers Commission has been discriminatory, negligent, and incompetent in its operations, and that's why we're bringing the lawsuit.
Commission.
I think we're doing a good job. We're spending a lot of time. There's some hardworking men on there. There is a disagreement over the zoning. The group that I represent on it want to cooperate and work with those landowners, not take their land for the public use to be seen from the middle of a river.
An initial announcement out of age and older. Well, I think that's one of the things that the senior citizens are most interested in. In other states, they usually are held to 5 issues that they make as their top priorities. And they found that as much as 3 or 4 of these 5 in other states have been enacted into law in the next legislative session.
We ought to be on. There he is.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President of the United States. I'm convinced we're going to get a tax bill that the President can sign. I'm somewhat concerned about the timing, when that bill will be on his desk. The President is right in pushing urgently for the enactment of his tax legislation. Secondly, I believe that the Senate and House will, in conference, come up with the spending resolutions that will be acceptable to the President.
After the news conference, the Vice President's motorcade moved to the Camelot Inn on Tulsa's south side. Here, Bush is to speak at a $1,000 per couple Republican fundraiser. After all, Bush says the real reason for coming to Tulsa is not necessarily to defend the Reagan administration, but instead to do a little politicking. I'm Larry Otis, Action 4 in Tulsa.
Like anyone else who makes sales of taxable property,
The one who makes the sale is the one who is charged by law with collecting the tax and remitting it to the tax commission.
How will the vendor be, how can the vendor be reimbursed?
Well, that's a good question. That would be a civil matter. I presume that they could at least try to go back against the people who originally bought the materials tax-free and try to get the reimbursement, and they in turn could go back to the exempt entity and try to be reimbursed, but these would be civil matters among them.
By doing that, they'd kind of be risking irritating a paying customer, wouldn't they?
Well, that would be a possibility, yes.
The problem will be eliminated when this new sewage treatment plant on the North Canadian River becomes operational. But right now, this plant is bogged down in red tape. So until it opens, Oklahoma City wants to dump some of its sewer sludge on a 63-acre site near Forest Park. Well, that proposal has some Forest Park residents upset.
And we have some questions about will this site do what they're claiming it's going to do. Yeah, we fixed it. In northwest Oklahoma City and southeast. They claim it's non-toxic. We're not convinced that it's non-toxic. They claim that there's minimal odor. We think that there may be more than minimal odor. And we've got some questions about the floodplain that nobody's addressed.
The question then is this location an appropriate place to dispose of it? And I think that the answer is yes, it is. It's a proper place for it. It's been reviewed by everyone who has an interest in the environmental effects on it. It's located well in terms of transportation arteries. We can all sympathize with anyone who would believe that it would be better if it were located somewhere further away. But it's almost always got to be located closer to someone if it's going to be farther away from someone else. Where we used to just dump it in the river and it'd all go away.
Front room, living room area is pretty well sustained a large loss. The rest of the house has sustained a lot of smoke damage and heat damage.
Do you have any idea what caused the fire?
Not at this point, no. We've got an inspector on the way, and he's going to talk to the lady and the children. We're going to look a little further and investigate it and see if we can find out what did cause it.
You can live without a wheelchair if you've got an old wheelchair. You can live without hand controls on a car and go for months and months and months. When you are down to, though you're living on a daily basis of bathroom equipment, these are things that you cannot live without. You cannot wait 8 months.
If the state continues to refuse to pay for the equipment, then this is going to virtually eliminate equipment for the children, for the people in the state. They're going to have these needs, but there's going to be no dealer in the state that's willing to send out equipment without being paid for it.
Officials here at the Department of Human Services refused to comment on camera about the money shortage. However, they admitted to some serious problems in funding rehabilitative services. As long as taxpayers are in a tax-cutting mood, handicapped people like Donna Miller can't expect much help from the state. Mark O'Neill, Action 4 at the state capitol.
Shot. What round of who y'all live?